Hey all, my name is Hayden, and today we're going to go through kind of what I'm calling an assumptions primer to studying the Bible. And the reason I wanted to do this is because as I was kind of setting out to write some of the curriculum, I guess if you want to call it that, for the Huddle U class on expositional studying, I realized that the expositional way of studying the Bible comes with a lot of assumptions attached, and it made me realize that we all bring assumptions to the Bible. We bring assumptions about what it is. And this is really epitomized by a search I did for just the Bible on Google and came up with gifts like these. So these are all images of the Bible that people have out there, a golden glowing book, or Jesus coming out in the skies, or just a book that like flops open and sits there. But these are images that people have of the Bible, right? And there's a reason. It's because those images are conjured up by assumptions that people have, and those assumptions are maybe best described by some of these questions right here, like, what's the Bible's purpose? Or what's the main message? Who wrote the Bible? How has it been shaped over time? How has the Bible been read over the course of the time? And how should someone study the Bible? All of those answers to those questions are going to lead you to have a mental image of what the Bible is and what it's for. So before we go too much further, I really want to encourage you, if you haven't already, ask some of these questions of yourself. Take a little pause of the video and then spend some time, like some real time on it, and then come back to it and really ask yourself. And I think that'll help you as we continue on. So take a pause. All right, so here we go. If you didn't pause, bummer, but that's all right. So we're going to be talking about how to study the Bible, and the way that I'm going to be teaching in the class is called the expositional method of studying, which expositional just means like exposing what's there. In other words, asking the Bible to speak on its own terms without us trying to bring our own interpretations into it before we've even read what it says. So the expositional method does have assumptions and a view of the Bible, but I would say probably the best way that I've heard it described is by the Bible Project, which says the Bible is a unified story that leads to Jesus. This is an assumption that the expositional method assumes, that the Bible is centrally focused toward Jesus, and that it's a unified story. So it's not just a collection of a bunch of books and stories, but it's actually intended to be one overarching story. And this isn't just like a statement that the Bible Project came up with, but it's actually in the Bible, according to Jesus' own words, is where they are pulling this from. And before I go too much further, I just want to say, as we go through this primer, I'm going to be kind of handing you guys some tools for your tool belt, because to be honest, studying the Bible in the way of like the expositional style and trying to expose what it means is going to take some tools. It takes a little bit of work, but we have the internet and we have a lot of tools at our disposal to help us with that. So the Bible Project is one of them. If you haven't spent any time with their tools and their resources, I highly encourage it. They do a great job of showing how the Bible is a unified story that leads to Jesus. So here's the quote, and as I go, like I said, we're going to be pulling a bunch of other resources in. One of these is Bible Gateway, which is where we're at right now. Bible Gateway is just a free online Bible. It's got some ads, which is, better for here or there, but it does a really good job of having a bunch of versions on there, so you can kind of compare versions as you go. One benefit, you can also listen to the Bible on audio, which I found to be incredibly helpful for me. So here's what Jesus says about the scriptures. He said to them, he's talking to his disciples, "This is what I told you while I was with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." And then he opened their minds so that they could understand the scriptures. And he told them, "This is what is written. The Messiah will suffer and rise from the dead on the third day. And repentance for the forgiveness of sins will be preached in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem, and you're witnesses of these things. So this is how Jesus conceives of the Bible. He sees the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms, which is his way of saying the entire Old Testament. He says everything that must be fulfilled that is written about me. So he assumes that the Old Testament is actually about him. And then he goes on and talks about what the actual, that unified story is, that the Messiah will suffer and rise from the dead, etc. on verse 46 and 47. And then in 48, he says, you're witnesses of these things. In other words, you're seeing this fulfillment happen, which then they're writing down as the Gospels in the New Testament. So he sees the entire story, exactly, the entire Bible exactly like this, as a unified story that leads to himself, according to Luke 24:44. So that's one assumption that the expositional method is going to make as you're studying, and is going to help you try to see as you study with this tool. Another one is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the first thing in the Bible, in Genesis 1:1. But I think sometimes we really think that it says, like, in the beginning, you, not necessarily meaning that we think that we created the heavens and the earth, but that we think that when we open the Bible, it should be talking about us, talking to us directly. But the Bible actually in its very first sentence is claiming to be talking about God and who he is, and his character. And so that's something interesting to think about. That doesn't mean that the Bible doesn't have anything to say about us, but the way it's going to talk about us and affect our lives is in our relationship to God and our understanding of his character. So that's one good thing to keep in mind, and that's something that the expositional method is going to try to help us reveal. Another thing to understand and to ask yourself, raise your hand if you live here. This is a replica of Second Temple, Jerusalem. So this is where the majority of the Bible was kind of compiled together and made and edited into one Old Testament, at least. So this is kind of a question to ask yourself, like, are you the original author, and are you in their context more so? Obviously, you probably don't think you're the original author, but are you in the original author's context, or are you in the context of the editors who are compiling the Bible together? And what I mean by that is the Bible in each book, almost every book, is actually specifically called out by an author that sets themselves in a time and a place. And they do that on purpose. So check out Jeremiah. This is the opening words of Jeremiah from this really sweet tool by Logos called Biblia. Again, this is just free online. But it says, the words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, one of the priests who were in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of the Lord came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. So Jeremiah is being diligent to actually ground his words and his prophetic scroll in history. He gives you where he was. He gives you a certain king to reference the time that he was speaking. So the context of the author is actually important. And one cool thing as we're here that Logos does a really great job of, this button, explain verse, is sweet. It kind of dials in and gives you some breakdowns. So if you're like, I don't know what the land of Benjamin is, boom, you got a little note, and you even got some history on the tribe of Benjamin. So if you are looking to be like, well, I don't understand the context of the author, how is that going to help me? This is a great tool to be able to help you understand. And as we get into the actual class, I'll show you how we kind of apply these tools. But the other thing is, not only are you not in Jeremiah's time, but like I said, the Bible was edited together by people that were not at the time of the actual author writing it. And maybe that sounds a little scary, but the Bible actually does its best to show this to you. So I'm going to pull up another awesome tool called Bible Hub. And this is from Judges 6:24. And it says this: So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, "The Lord is Peace." And to this day, it stands in Ophrah of Abiezrites. I'm not great at pronouncing all the words all the time, but but that's all right. But what I want you to notice in this verse is, to this day it stands. So if the author themselves was just writing this, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to be like, and then I built this altar and it stands there to this day. Be like, wow, your altar stood there for 2 days. No, this is saying that someone, when they were compiling these stories, and say, hey, and you can actually go still look, even though this happened in the past. So there's evidence of editorship. And the reason that's important, as we'll see as the expositional method is going to try to train your eye to see, is that the editors are going to be bringing up things that are important in their time to help their audience, the people that are going to be reading these scriptures in their minds and in their context, understand the importance of the story. So this is all assumptions that the expositional method has about the Bible and what's important to notice, but it's also going to give you tools to help you understand. So if this seems like a lot so far, don't worry. There's tools to come and it'll make sense. But raise your hand also if you dress like this. So probably none of us dress like first century Romans, right? But the original audience's context matters too. I'm bringing up another tool called YouVersion. It's got a sweet app. I read the Bible out of this app pretty regularly. It's got a lot of sweet plans that you can choose from to help keep you accountable if you're trying to read the Bible every day or every couple days. There's some great ways to keep yourself accountable on YouVersion. But here's from Colossians 4:6 is from Paul. After you have read this letter, pass it on to the church at Laodicea so they can read it too, and you should read the letter I wrote them. Okay, so what's going on here? I'm pulling this verse totally out of context, but the point is that Paul is talking to a specific group of people very clearly that are in Colossae, and then he's saying, hey, take this letter that I'm writing to you and walk down to Laodicea and give that letter to them. They're going to have a letter for you. I want you to bring it back and bring it with you. And so what I want to notice is that like you yourself in 2023 here and wherever you're living and watching this, you're not the original audience of these letters. And so Paul oftentimes, like even here, he'll say after you have read this letter, but he doesn't actually mean you. He means the people that he's writing to. Now, does that mean we can't take anything away from this? That it means it doesn't apply to us? That it means it has no relevance to us? No, absolutely not. And there's tons of relevance and there's tons of meaning packed into every word of Scripture. But the expositional method believes that in order for us to understand the meaning for us, we first have to understand the meaning for them. So that is why this is important. So why does any of this matter? Why does the context and the Bible being a unified story and all these assumptions, why does it matter? Well, it matters because the way that we conceive of the Bible is going to, again, affect the way that we read it. And ultimately, we're all here hoping that the Bible would speak to you, right? That the Bible would speak to us. And each one of these questions and the answers that we have to these questions is going to affect the way that happens. Now, I firmly believe that the Bible does speak to us, that it's inspired by God, that it is able to mess with our lives and bring us to Christ and point us to Christ and give us life and help us experience His love. But I think that the expositional method is going to show you as we actually get into the class and I take these tools and show you how to use them, that the answers to these questions really matter, and that it's going to help you as you study to see a more robust version of the Bible than maybe you have before. So looking forward to studying with you all, and we'll see you in the actual class.